Not knowing how to conduct yourself, drinking too much to a point of inebriation is a big red flag. You know, if you ever start stumbling or slurring your speech, you know, there's a time and a place for that. But usually that's a big red flag for women, especially if you're out on dates. For me, I will judge men harshly on bad driving. If a man doesn't check his mirrors and he's not moving his car properly, I judge people on bad driving. Again, bad language, using too much slang when you're supposed to be in a professional setting. Knowing the difference between a casual and a professional setting is very important. It's not just the language somebody uses, because the language I'll use with my friends is very different to the language I'll use on a Zoom call with a multi-billionaire businessman. So it's knowing the time and the place for certain types of behavior, because as men, we can all be childish and we can all be juvenile, but you have to be able to distinguish one from the other. And there's people who I've met who certainly don't know how to present themselves to somebody, even somebody like myself who's wealthy and they're trying to pitch me this business idea. They show up and they're acting as though we're two friends down the pub, even though I don't know them. That's a huge red flag. You know, they should at least make the effort to try to come across as refined as possible. And if they're incapable of doing it or incapable of spotting a situation where they should be doing it in, then it's probably not the kind of person that I'd want to do business with, network with, be friends with. Elegance in a woman, to me, is somebody who's never going to embarrass or humiliate you and somebody you'd be very proud to show off. So I don't know if women see it that same way in men, but if you come across as an elegant man, that's the kind of man that she wants to show to her friends, to her parents. Lots of women I date are very keen to show me to their friends or their parents or their families for whatever reason, in the same way that, you know, I'd want to show off a beautiful woman to my friends. But when there's any rough edges, that's the kind of thing that will put you off wanting to show somebody off. So if a woman swears a lot, talks in a very bad manner, maybe has a really horrible accent, you know, dresses a bit too revealing, that's the kind of thing that will make you think, okay, this woman's all right. I like her. I'll keep her at home, but I'm not going to introduce her to my friends. So elegance is certainly something that women should strive for, and men as well. The first step to giving a proper handshake is not being a weakling. Because if you're weak and skinny and scrawny, and you try to give this really hard handshake, it may be a firm handshake, but I also know you're trying too hard. Whereas if you've got big forearms and big hands and big shoulders, and you've been training and you look like a strong guy, I expect your handshake to be firm. The number one thing when people say firm handshake is people who don't know how to meet and greet men. They think that you have to squeeze the hand. You don't have to squeeze the hand at all. Less than half a centimeter of actual movement, but your hand should be rigid and unmovable. You can't have a malleable hand in someone's hand where, you know, if they squeeze it slightly, your fingers are going to bend. So nice firm hand, you grab and you squeeze just half a centimeter. That's it. No crushing, no trying to show you're stronger than anyone else. It's just the fact that your hand moves and doesn't give anything back. That makes a firm handshake. If you start squeezing people's hands, they're going to think you're a dick. There's no correct answer for which accent is acceptable and which one isn't. However, some accents are better than others, which is a shame because you can't really control your accent. However, regardless of what your accent's like and what your speaking voice is like, you can always tell the intelligence behind somebody's accent, depending on the language they use, the vocabulary they use, the vernacular they use, the way they pause, the way that they take their time when putting thoughts together, the way they intonate their words. So I know very smart people who are Chinese, Nigerian, Indian, who do speak with their heavy accent. However, you know that there's a brain behind that accent. So if you're lucky enough to be born with a British or maybe an American accent and you're not using your voice to your full potential, it's one of those instances where you'll always get outpaced by somebody who's more obsessed than if you're born with natural talent. So if you're born with a BBC British accent, which I don't quite have, but I guess that would be the top rank of accents in the world, in my opinion. You know, if there's an Indian guy who can sell more than you and do more business than you and close more deals than you, despite the fact that his accent is a disadvantage, that's just because he works harder than you. So make sure that you do work on your vocabulary. Download stupid apps, word of the day. Read 20 new words a day and read what they mean, learn their definitions, try to include them into your everyday vocabulary. Yeah, you're really doing yourself a huge disservice if you don't try to maximize your speaking voice. The best way to cultivate your voice, besides expanding your vocabulary, to me, would be reading out loud. Take a book that you like, or a book that isn't something very simple, no children's books, obviously, and read them out loud. It's an exercise that everyone used to have us doing in school. We probably don't understand why our teachers used to make us do this. However, the way that stories are written and the way that people speak in books and the way that sentences are put together, you can tell how it's supposed to be read. You can tell you're not supposed to just zoom through all the words like you do in your head when you're mentally reading it. So literally read it out loud. You can imagine how these characters are speaking to each other. You can imagine how they're trying to convey themselves, whether it be a sad moment of the book, an action-packed part of the book, somber, happy. It doesn't matter. You know what the characters are feeling at the time. So read out loud. And then when you find yourself speaking with your friends, if you find yourself talking really fast and you're umming and ahhing and you can't get your words together like this, then slow the fuck down. Slow down. Think of what you want to say before you say it and try to convey it in a very articulate, compendious way. There is a trick that I could tell young men that will help them close business deals, help them get girlfriends, help them make friends, help them get into the circles that they want to get into. And it's a stat, I guess, of yourself that you can expand throughout your entire life, and you should never stop expanding it. And that would be general knowledge. General knowledge is super important, because I remember I was sitting with one of the sheikhs in Dubai, and there was no alcohol at this house, of course. It was a dinner event. And they start passing around this wood that you burn, and you smell the scent coming off the wood. And I knew exactly how it was made and how it was cultivated. If you don't find it in the wild, which is very hard nowadays because it's all extinct, you have to drill certain holes into these trees and infect the trees with a certain type of mold and wait for the wood to go petrified. And I was explaining this process to him, which he already knew, but he was super impressed that I understood this part of Arabic culture and what this product was exactly. And general knowledge will always impress people. I can sit down with most people and have a conversation about most topics. Regardless of what it is, there's something that I will know about it. And as a young man, there's no reason to just, if you like sales and internet marketing, only read about that. Spend your spare time learning about things that you don't think are particularly useful. Maybe spend your spare time learning about things that you right now have no business knowing. Yachts, the different brands and makes of private jet. Learn all of this. Because when you start to sit with important people, you can at least have an idea what they're talking about and interject in the conversation, perhaps with something they don't know. And that has made me more friends and more connections with men, women, businessmen, anyone who I was trying to get connected to than maybe anything else. General knowledge. You have to work on it. See, I like audiobooks. And even right now, you say you don't see me learning things. I am 4 hours into a 17-hour audiobook course, lectures on the Vikings and Norse mythology and Norse history. Why? So the last 2 hours when I was in my room, I was listening to it. So you don't see me learning this stuff, but I just find so many things interesting that I will make sure that instead of listening to music or doing other things, I'm filling my brain with information. So every day I'm learning something new. I don't think a day goes by when I don't learn something new from somewhere. But yeah, going down rabbit holes is always very interesting on the internet. If you find an interesting fact out about something, then read up more. I mean, Wikipedia is a tremendous resource. Everyone's forgotten about it. It's because it's kind of fallen out of fashion, I think. But it is a tremendous resource. And when it comes to history and battles and world leaders and things like that, there are literally clickable links from each page to the next page to the next page. And you could sit and read and learn entire eras of history or entire 20-year periods in an hour or two, if you are determined enough. And this information is maybe not useful for making money and maybe not useful in the long run. But if you impress someone like me, who you're trying to do business with your knowledge on something that I find interesting, then I'm going to like you more and I'm more likely to sign the contract. There's nothing wrong with being a gentleman. The only thing that there's a problem with today is simping. People on the internet who are pretty much incels, who subscribe to a very toxic idea of what red pill masculinity is, will see me with this beautiful girl having purchased these flowers and think simp. For all the young men out there who get very confused by the terms used on the internet, I would say simping is one thing and one thing only. Simping is an unfair exchange of value. That's what simping is. If a girl doesn't know I exist, and I found her address, I'm sending flowers to her house just to make her happy, that very much is simping. If I am waiting by the door to my office going into work and trying to open the door for every single woman in the hope that they'll recognize me, that is simping. Buying flowers for a work colleague who isn't interested in you is simping. However, if you are trying to get a woman to take you seriously in terms of starting a relationship with her, then very few things you can do can be considered simping. Because as I said, that's an unfair exchange of value. If the value you get at the end is a girlfriend, or maybe even a wife or family, then there's absolutely nothing wrong with, buying them flowers, opening the door, opening their car door. Even if you pull up at her house, jump out, run around, open it up, let her in, close the door, run right back around and get in the driver's seat. These are all very standard gentlemanly moves that you can make. It's when you're making them for women who will never have a serious interest in you, that's when it becomes simping. Elegance in men is a lot more about behavior than the way you dress. It's not a costume you could put on. It's very much your mannerisms and the way that you behave. If you were to put me in sneakers and sweatpants, I would still fit in a top-end restaurant more so than I would have done at 19 wearing a full suit. It's the way you open doors for people, the way that you greet the waiters, the way that you greet the staff, the way that you treat your guests. If you're driving a lady, particularly, and you're not in the West where they've all become radical feminists, by all means, get out the car first, walk around the side, open the door. It's something that you can't wear. It's something that you have to be. So read up tips on basic etiquette, how to hold your knife and fork, how to hold a glass of wine by the stem and not by the bowl of it at the top. And you'll fit in a lot more at the better places and seem a lot more elegant, regardless of what you're wearing. It depends on the setting that you're talking about. If you're setting yourself amongst high value men and you want to seem more gentlemanly, then certainly cutting out foul language in the way you speak is the way. The one trick, I say trick, I guess the one trait and the one behavior I like is if somebody is getting up or leaving a table, to stand up yourself. And also when anyone wants to greet you or to shake your hand, whether it be male or female, never do it sitting down. If a man comes over to me and is about to walk over and sit at my table, I'll never shake his hand sitting down. I'll never say hi to a woman and give her a half hug sitting down. You always stand up, look the man in the eyes and shake his hand, or you stand up, look at the woman in the eyes, give her a kiss on both cheeks. Sometimes it's 3, sometimes it's 1, depending on what country you're from, but never ever greet people from your seat. That is a number one red flag. And also it's one of the most important because it's usually people's first impression of you. Yeah, I mean, I've seen a lot of variations. And to be fair, if you're a worldly person, there are a bunch of variations to this. I think in Southeast Asia, I've been in India, Thailand, Vietnam. That's when people will give you the double handshake. They'll grab your hand. But that's very much a sign of being a subordinate, a guy who you tip heavily at a hotel will grab your hand. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. There are different etiquettes and ways to bow to certain people in Japan. I know you always have to bow lower than the person you're bowing to if he's in a position of seniority, but Japan's not a place I hang out a lot at. But before you go to anywhere new, I would certainly look up the little traits within the culture and try to play along as best as you can because it's usually appreciated. The real world used to have a lot of hype around it, and the hype was created by the fact that it was Andrew and I who created an online educational platform. I would say that the real world has now traded hype, it hasn't got hype anymore, with legacy. I feel like the people involved in making the real world run have proven themselves time and time again as competent professors, competent teachers. The people who run the tech have proven themselves as extremely competent administrators of the school. I think that Andrew and I could completely take our hands off of it and have no input inside of the school itself, and it would run very, very well for, years and years on end. I think that the real world now is a more exciting place to be than it's ever been. It's still the same great price. We still have not increased the price level for it, and I don't think we ever will. There's still no pay to play, to get interaction from the professors, etc. But that is something that may come in the future as and when their time is more and more in demand. But I'm just very, very proud of the fact that it's something that Andrew and I created, but you could take it away from me and Andrew, and you could have somebody else own it and somebody else market it, and it would still be in its current form an absolutely fantastic product. Try to distance your mindset from the real world just being Andrew Tate's university and take Andrew out of it and just look at it as a true alternative to university, a true alternative to traditional education where you can learn the skills you need to make money on your own time today. The key behind selling anything is identifying a need. And we're very lucky with a product and a school like the real world in the way that it can fulfill basically everybody's need. There's nobody who's looking at making money online and utilizing their skills in front of their computer to generate an income that can't be satisfied with the real world. So back when I used to sell windows and doors to people, it was a relatively complicated pitch. You'd find out what the problems with their homes were. Was it aesthetic? Did the house look ugly? Was the house too cold? Was the house too hot? Was the house not secure enough? And you'd identify these various things based on where they lived, what their house looked like, what the house felt like inside, if there were drafts, and then you try to sell them whichever home improvement product you liked. However, there isn't a single person here who interacts with me who doesn't understand that they need to increase their skill levels in certain methods of wealth creation and content creation on the internet, especially. Even myself, I, for one, am not so adept with AI image generation, AI content creation. I'm lucky and blessed enough to be in a position where I can hire people to do this for me, and I can outsource people to do this for me. I have the real world professors who can do this for me. I also have real world students. But you, if you don't know how to use AI, can certainly use the real world. If you shop on Amazon and you buy items, as opposed to being a consumer, why not run your own Amazon web store, become a supplier? Again, you can use the real world. Internet marketing is a very important part of what me and Andrew do for our brand and our business, and we are arguably the best in the world at it. Well, where can you learn this? The real world. And who are you learning from? Arguably the most famous and successful internet marketers of all time and the people behind their strategies. So it's a very easy product to sell if I were a salesman telling you to sign up. And it's why I don't really have to tell people to sign up that much, because a few moments of investigation into what the real world is and what is taught inside of it, and you understand it's very easily worth $49.99 a month. Maybe you don't care much about making money. Maybe you just want to get into shape. Maybe you just want to take your nutrition more seriously while learning these things for fun. Maybe you're already a millionaire. Good, then you have a health and fitness professional to teach you inside of the real world. Who's health and fitness professional? Me, Tristan Tate, multimillionaire. You have my health and fitness guy inside the real world, and you can access them all for a lot less than I used to pay him. So really, it's a product that sells itself. I mean, if you're not a member of the real world and you think you have no use for this school, I assure you, you are wrong. So don't sign up. I don't care. If you're trying to sell the real world to people whose minds are locked into the matrix programming, you're probably not going to succeed, because their objections to the product are actually more objections to Andrew and myself than the product at all. They haven't looked into the product. They don't know what it does. It's like seeing Matthew McConaughey in those old Lincoln commercials. Do you remember? And he talks about, I like driving a Lincoln. If I hate Matthew McConaughey, if I hate him with all of my guts, I don't really care what a Lincoln drives like. I don't care what features it has. I don't care how the steering is. I don't care how the handling is. I'm not going to go and test drive a Lincoln because I hate Matthew McConaughey. Now, with all marketing strategies that use celebrities and famous people, this is a relatively black and white way to think, and it does work in the way that people who love the celebrity are going to buy into the product, and people who hate them aren't going to buy into the product. But do I actually have any major objections to Lincoln automobiles? I've never sat behind the wheel of one, but I don't really like Matthew McConaughey. I don't want to be like him. So the brand doesn't speak to me. I think the objections people are going to come across when trying to sell the real world or try to advise friends to join the platform are going to be like, well, aren't Andrew and Tristan bad guys? Aren't they criminals? Well, there are lots of millionaires and billionaires in the world who in fact do have criminal records and who in fact do commit criminal felonies. I'm not one of them, and Andrew isn't one of them. However, whether or not you like Andrew or I, you have to understand that we are fantastic internet marketers. That's the reason why you hate us, or it's the reason why you like us. So we obviously know what we're talking about. And there isn't a single person on the planet who could say Andrew and I don't understand how to make money. So if I'm teaching you how to make money, you better listen. O.J. Simpson, may God rest his soul, was actually an accused murderer. He was not convicted, but he was accused. And the general consensus is that he did in fact murder his ex-wife. Now, if he released a course teaching you how to be a great American football quarterback, you better buy it. Does it really matter that he committed X crime or you don't personally like him? Or you have any personal gripe or issue with O.J. Simpson? He was one of the best quarterbacks of all time. So if you want to learn how to play American football, there would be nothing wrong with learning from him. There are ways to overcome those objections, but I wouldn't waste your time with them. If people are so set in their mindset that they wish to believe that I, a man obviously worth hundreds of millions of dollars because you've seen my spending habits, you've seen the cars I drive, you've seen the private jets, you've seen all the stuff that I do. If somebody really believes that I had to make that money criminally, or I somehow had to exploit somebody to make that money, then there's no helping them. There's no helping them. That's just somebody being stupid. And stupid people, the real world really isn't for them. It's for the forward thinking. It's for the people who think outside of the matrix programming, outside of the box, and actually, maybe want to make a difference in their lives. I think that a lot of people lean into the stuff the mainstream media say, whether it's about me or whether it's about COVID or whether it's about foreign wars, because it's the easy standpoint to take. Your life's crap. You have no money. You have no girlfriend. Well, it's fine. Maybe my weight problem isn't my fault. I need to take some antidepressants. The food I eat has nothing to do with me being fat. It's normal. It's healthy to, watch porn all day. And they lean into these narratives because it's a very easy way of escapism. It's a very easy way of putting all your sins on somebody else. Instead of finding Jesus Christ, they find mental health or food or depression or maybe the mainstream news. And they're like, okay, well, the whole world is ruined because of Vladimir Putin, for example. Well, that explains why my life sucks. You can't really help these people snap out of it because there's enough people in the world who have the mindset of a winner. There's enough people in the world who do want to go out there and make changes in their life and find the success that is available to anybody. Well, from a networking standpoint, the number one thing you have to remember, because I'm now at a stage in my life where a lot of people want to get to know me. So I see it from the other end. As a younger man, I would introduce myself to people and try to get to know them because they were important. Now I'm on the other side of the equation. The main thing to remember is that if you treat people like you're a fan, then they're going to treat you like you're one of the fans. That's it. If you treat people like a celebrity, they're going to treat you like a fan. So many years ago, even when I was not famous and not even relatively successful or before I had any money, when I would meet famous people, I met a few famous actors through my kickboxing. You'd speak to them one-on-one like a normal person. You'd introduce yourself. You'd ask them their name even, not in an obnoxious way, even if you already know what it is. And the best way to go about it is when you're working the room and you finally get face to face with these people. Do not ask for selfies. Do not ask for pictures. Do not act shocked or surprised or like a fan. Do not worship them. When I was sitting with that famous rapper the other day, I just sat down on the couch and we were shooting the shit man to man for over 45 minutes, an hour. I didn't ask him about his songs. I didn't ask him about his music. And we just talked like men. So that's the best way to network, I guess, is that when you finally do get the opportunity to speak to people, speak to them like a normal person. Otherwise, they're never going to take you seriously. I would say, yeah, absolutely. Get a commission-only sales job. Get a sales job that offers you no basic salary because it teaches you lots of things. One, the art of sales and closing the deal and actually bringing money in is very important. But two, it teaches you work ethic and hunger. Because when I worked commission-only sales jobs, it was a matter of, I'm not going to eat unless I sell these windows. And, I'd take a 3-hour drive down to whichever house I was going to give the presentation in. I'd sit there, stare in the mirror, splash some water on my face, snap into sales mode, knock on the door, and then make my presentation. And I was very, very good. And yeah, sales is a skill that Andrew and I have even to this day, but you have to understand absolutely everything from the camera that's recording me to the chair I'm sitting on to this wooden paneling. There's somebody in every single company that makes everything that is somehow in charge of sales and marketing. So just think about things. Think about the items around you in the room. Think about the items you use every day. When you go and buy something, why did you buy it? Why did you buy it and who convinced you to buy it? You could be ordering a coffee from Starbucks. Why? Why are you ordering the coffee from Starbucks? Who behind the desk of Starbucks HQ all those years ago sat and came up with the strategy that made you know what the brand is about and go there and actually buy their coffee? Obviously, boycott Starbucks, but that's just an example. But think about it when you buy things. Think about your reason for buying them. And then your mind will start thinking a lot more like a salesman. Yeah, if you're leaving university or high school, sales is definitely the field you should get into. It's the field you should get into because no matter what you learn and no matter what skill set you actually develop on top of sales, you have to convince people to use your product or service one way or another. Andrew and I are very good at sales, but anything you learn inside of the real world, even whether it be AI content creation, that's all well and good. And you could be the best in the world. But if you can't convince people to use your service and actually pay you money to do the things that you're good at, then it doesn't matter. It's all for nothing. So you should definitely get into sales. I'll be perfectly honest. Geography is one of the most important things to that. There's about 5 or 6 cities in the world where the people hang out, and you have to know the places in those cities where the people hang out. So again, you have to have your dress code right. You have to have your manners right. You have to have at least some money to be able to get into the door of those places. The world works in a very strange way when it comes to high-level men and especially beautiful women as well. Imagine it in terms of 3 different rooms, and one room is free to walk inside, and it's where all the fat chicks and the brokies hang out. One room costs $2,000 to walk inside just to get in the door. And there are the average looking girls and the guys with a bit of money. And then one room costs $100,000 to walk into. And that's where all the 10 out of 10s hang out and all the millionaires and billionaires and people you want to network with. That's exactly how the world actually works. That's not a analogy, because all of the places where the people who you want to meet are costs at least some money, or you have to have some type of reputation or some type of standing or some type of network or good friends to actually get into these places. So if you're in Bucharest, Romania, your odds of running into a high value person who you think is going to be of any use to you is pretty much zero, because I probably don't want to talk to you, and neither does Andrew, and you don't know anyone else in the city. But Los Angeles, certainly, Miami, New York, London, Dubai, Singapore, there are places in the world where the people hang out. And depending on what you want to do and who you want to know, all depends on where you go. And then you just have to work your way up until you're in the same room as these people. That all depends on who you're trying to meet, but I would say the number one would be health and fitness. People will take you a lot more seriously if your clothes fit well and you're muscularly built and you're strong and you go up and give a firm handshake. If you're a fat sack of shit, people are not going to take you as seriously. That's just the way that the world works. So that's the base that you have to work off of as a young man, because maybe your IQ isn't that high, but maybe you're a nutritionist and personal trainer. Nutritionists and personal trainers to the ultra wealthy and to the celebrities of the world do very, very well. In fact, I heard of one, actually. He was gifted a Ferrari for all of his hard work, but then he was arrested and had his car stolen by the police. That's quite an amusing story. But yeah, if he didn't have his particular skill set, I would never have met him, and I never would have associated with him, and he never would have worked for me. He never would have bought that Ferrari. On top of health and fitness, for making a good first impression, your ability to speak, your speaking voice, because that communicates into everything you do, whether it's sales and marketing, website design, fitness, training, whatever you think you have to offer people, you have to be able to convey the idea to them. You have to be able to explain the idea to them. Again, sales skills. I advise anybody, if you're young and you're broke and you don't have a job, take up a sales job. Doesn't matter what it is. Doesn't matter if you're selling windows or newspaper advertisements over the phone. Take up a sales job, because life is sales. My cameraman had to sell me his skills before I hired him. Even meeting beautiful women is sales. You have to convince them to let you waste their time and spend time with them. So everything is sales. So your sales skills, your speaking voice, your health and fitness, and your general appearance are all the most important things. Spending a lot of money is an investment in your city. Spending a lot of money on vacation, if I'm somewhere where I'm never going to be again, it perhaps matters a lot less. But even if you do something stupid, very stupid, even if you go to the local casino and you gamble $50,000 and, say goodbye to everyone and smile and walk out with a smile on your face, you are now a well-known person. If you go out to a club and you spend $25,000 on champagne, a crazy spend that they are never used to seeing, you'll be surprised at how often you get asked back and invited back. There's a nightclub actually in Belarus that still messages me to this day, when are you coming back to Belarus? Because they never had anyone walk in there and spend $30,000. So it's a very good way of getting known. And yeah, it is absolutely an investment. It's an investment in your reputation. It's an investment in your reputation, and it's an investment in terms of, what people think of you as a man and your status and your standing, I guess, in the hierarchy of your city. Networking is all about making it. So you can't just network after you've made it. You have to have armed yourself with a skill set that makes you useful to people. It's no good, becoming the man in your hometown, living in LA, networking, working your way up, knowing that you can get into the best bars, the best restaurants, etc. And then when you're there, just being a jackass and not having any skills and not having anything to offer people. If you come up to me and say, hey, Tristan, I'd like to work with you, for you, you better have something good to say. So it's not just the networking aspect of it. It's what you're doing in your spare time. What are you reading? What are you learning? What can you possibly offer people? Because people like me don't really need money, so I don't care about your business idea. You probably need my marketing skills more than I need you and your business idea.
I don't care about hiring you because I have the best people to do all of the jobs I want, the best cameramen, the best security guards. So if you don't have something really unique and special to offer the people who you're trying to meet, you're just going to come across as someone who's pestering them. And being pestered is very annoying when you're famous.
If you look at life like a video game, anything that increases one of your stats is a worthwhile hobby. I think that playing chess will make you more intelligent, helps your critical thinking. Reading books makes you more interesting and more knowledgeable. Any type of sport or physical training makes you stronger, fitter, better looking. It's going to make you live longer. So whatever hobby you want to pursue and whatever you want to do, just make sure it's something that makes you better as a person. I mean, I know young men who make jewelry, who make knives. You know, that's a very productive hobby because it's a business that they're training themselves up to do. Just try to avoid things like video games, because video games actually increase nothing. They help you in no way at all. I would argue that they probably make you less healthy, more lazy.